Muscatine. We are going to do the show today from behind paper because my face looks crazy. Here's the thing. You would think after 40 years in Iowa, 40 plus years in Iowa, I would know what poison ivy looks like. And not just like, yes, I know what poison ivy, leaves of three, let it be, don't touch the, whatever it is, I know that. Apparently, though, I don't know it well enough to where if I'm like doing a bunch of other things, maybe thinking about some other stuff and messing with weeds where there's never been poison ivy before, I may not have noticed it right up by the house. So last night I may have had an entirely right side of my face completely red. So you're going to see some social media posts come out from us over the next couple of days reminding everybody what poison ivy looks like. Don't burn it, don't touch your face, just don't do it. Public safety announcement, right? A couple of quick things here, folks. Don't forget tonight we have Muskie Girls Softball starting at 5. And there's a big event tomorrow, but we're actually going to touch on that a little bit later. So we'll save that. In the meantime, though, we have Megan Francis with us. It's not Monday.
It's on a Thursday.
I'm totally confused, but we'll survive.
Yeah.
So, Megan, you're here, and for those of you that don't watch the show a lot, Megan's here fairly often on a variety of different topics that she's a part of. But today, since it's June 1st, it is the beginning of
Alzheimer's.
Yes.
And Brain Awareness Month.
Yes.
Yep.
And so that's what we're going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some cool stuff coming up. So, Megan, if you would, real quick, introduce yourself for those that don't know you, but also kind of what you've done and what your role with the Alzheimer's Association is.
Yeah.
And then we'll jump into the mental health or brain health stuff.
Sure. So I'm Megan Francis. I'm the marketing director at Crossroads, also working with Senior Resources. But with the Alzheimer's Association, I've been a volunteer for the last, we'll say 5 years. And I'm currently the Walk to End Alzheimer's chair. So our walk takes place the end of September, the 29th, and I am helping bring that to Muscatine.
So let's take a quick moment to talk about the walk because we'll touch again on it later. But
Yep.
So the walk is the major fundraiser for the year for the Alzheimer's Association. It happens all across the country, world, I would assume.
Yep.
And you guys you put on a great event. Like, unfortunately, I haven't been able to be there because we've had to broadcast because they did a really good job for about 4 or 5 years there of picking a home football game night as a night for the event. But so what does the walk look like for those that have never been to one?
Yeah, so the walk fundraising is really a year-round effort. So you can get registered now, start your team, we'll talk about a little incentive for that, and then fundraise all year long. So really the walk is that time to come together as a community, both to support those suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, their caregivers, their families, people who have lost loved ones, and really to just come together, both celebrate the fundraising that we've done and bring that community together. That's the support system in our community that people are looking for. And it's a really nice event. It starts off with a ceremony where we hear from all those different levels. So we have people share stories about someone that they're caring for with Alzheimer's, someone that's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and is currently living with it, someone that's lost a loved one, and then those like myself who just support the cause and those who are on this journey. So it's a great ceremony. It's always really touching. I always cry a little bit, so I'm never the one who talks. Everybody has, if you've seen before, the flowers that represent each of those stages. Everybody has flowers. We plant those flowers into a promise garden and then set off on our walk down the riverfront, which goes by the Friday Fest that's happening at that time. The last 2 years we've met up with Friday Fest and just celebrate together. And it's a great experience. So families, animals welcome, everybody.
Yep. And so what's cool, what I love about how this walk works is it is a year-round fundraiser functionally, right? With kind of that deadline goal coming up at the event, right? And it allows people to do cool stuff like Autumn Schultz and Impact and Scott. You know, obviously it's affected their family, so they've been, you know, very involved. And, you know, they do bike rides and they do burpees and they, I mean, you name it, throughout the year, they're both raising money and keeping it on people's mind.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the big thing. Dr. Saga from Unity Point has been doing a series on dementia, which are all available on discovermuscatine.com. There's a little dementia prevention button up at the top of the website. And of course we play them out on PCTV and stuff as well. But you don't realize how early it starts affecting people. You don't realize how many people it affects and how severely it affects them. Like, you hear about it, but until it really hits your family, you don't know. And what this does is it like gives everybody multiple touch points throughout the year to put it on their radar to look at maybe some symptoms that either they maybe have had or their friends are having, or, you know, it just kind of keeps it kind of top of mind, literally, which, you know, dementia thing, top of mind, is a great place for it to be, right? So when we talk about that, what are the biggest things for you as far as like the whole brain health side of it? What are some of the key things that you'd like people to know?
On the Alzheimer's website, there's a great 10 things, 10 signs of Alzheimer's. And it is Alzheimer's and all other dementias.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that whole umbrella. And, you know, I worked in assisted living for a number of years, and I would have family members come in, and the conversation would always be, Mom or Dad, they're just, something's off, something's not right. We're having the same conversations over and over. And a lot of those are those 10 signs that I then would be explaining. You're seeing some of the early onset of dementia. And that's a great time to start seeking help as a family, as a caregiver, and support. But I think it's detecting those early. Scott Schultz does a great job always talking about that effect of losing someone twice. So there is a grieving process when mom or dad or your loved one starts to change in that process. And the earlier that you can get support in that process, makes it easier, and then more resources you can have, the more understanding, and, you know, get assistance as a caregiver on how to deal with that. Yeah,
and that's one thing, you know, that like Dr. Saga talks about is like, it's potentially, and don't quote me on this, go watch what he actually says on it, because I'm going to get it close, maybe. You know, there are some signs that they say they can start picking up as early as 30 years before like what most people consider like the onset of the dementia functions, right? And so, you know, if you can make sure that those are on your radar, and, you know, he talks about just brain health is overall health. Eat well, exercise, sleep well. You know, sleep's like the number one thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just something that even if you aren't thinking, you know, if you're like me that I can't say early 40s anymore.
Right in them.
Yeah, right in the heart of them. Not quite halfway to 90 yet, but there are things that like you should have on your radar. There are things you can be doing now to help stave it off, to help minimize it as it happens, but also just to set up your life knowing that chances are it's gonna hit, like say you've got a spouse and you both live to be old. 1 in 3 people get Alzheimer's or dementia or some sort of brain health issue. So that means, you know, you've got a 60% chance that one of the two of you is going to end up with it, right? So it should be on everybody's radar all the time.
Yeah, so. And you know, medical advances are fantastic. We've come a long way, but people are living upwards of 6 years longer than they did 10 years ago. So where something else may have taken someone earlier before we've seen those signs, that's why dementia and Alzheimer's is rising. It's just because people are aging in place and living longer, which is great.
It is.
But now we've got to look for new things
Yeah.
and be ready to respond.
It's always that, the cause and effect thing.
Yeah.
You make one adjustment and that's good. And then it kind of like lowers the mess of stuff that, a whole bunch of people would have passed away under, right? And it starts, as you start peeling those off, whether it's cancer, whether it's heart disease, lung, whatever it is, right? As you start peeling those away, then you start seeing that, underlying the cancer, they were starting to have some brain issues, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really the part that's intrigued me the most, listening to Saga, and also going through, because obviously we're a partner of the walk, so we have like tons, and you guys are going to be getting tons of information from, and this is just the stuff that I had handy on my desk at the moment, right? We'll be sharing it out all month. There'll actually be a whole area on discovermuscatine.com dedicated to it, so watch for that over the next couple of days.
And I would really say, even the 10 warning signs, but just knowing that something is off with someone that you know really well. So they're not following a normal routine. They're not speaking the same way they have. They're not remembering things. When those things you start to notice those, that's that gut feeling that something is changing in your life.
And it's that first phone call, right?
Yep.
Everything that we talk about on the show, health related, whatever, everybody's apprehensive about that first phone call. They either don't want the diagnosis or they don't whatever, right? But everybody across the T that talks about anything, the earlier you get help, the better it is. So it's not a pride thing, it's not a whatever, just buck up and do it. Or if you've got a friend, buck up for them and get that conversation started.
Yeah, definitely.
So, speaking of, one of the things that you can do to help stave off brain deterioration, brain issues, is work on like brain teasers, crosswords, all this stuff. So, I found this on TikTok last night and I was watching it and I said, you know what, Megan's coming, and we try and do as much fun stuff with Megan as we can.
I have not spent enough time on TikTok.
No one spends enough time on TikTok. And that is what I said. No one spends enough. Yeah. Chris, can we see the pens on the table there? Okay. So we have 4 pens.
Okay.
This also works with pencils.
Okay.
So keep that in the back of your mind. What I need you to try and do is take one of these pens and move it so that a square is created. You can only move one. Square, rectangle, anything. It doesn't have to be completely perpendicular, right angles, and parallel, but you can play with it, you can manipulate it, you can do whatever you want.
I'm not good at these.
Maybe we should get some help.
Mark,
you want to come help?
Do you spend time on TikTok?
Now, I'll tell you this, folks. I love these kinds of things. I was watching it, and there's some pretty common things. You can move it. They're not going to bite.
I know.
They're not going to bite. You can do this.
But I'm like...
Ooh.
Which means I could be on to the... Well, so there's a square right there. Is that it?
Oh, did you seriously get it that fast? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my... You just totally ruined this whole... I guess you don't have dementia. Okay, so... If you want to play this on your friends and not have it go completely wrong on live TV like it did for me, so you just line them up like this with 2 of them touching, 2 touching like this. And usually what you're going to see most people with normal brain function do, and then there's Megan who just magically gets it, they're going to try stuff like this, and they're going to end up with like lots of triangles and things like that. And then they'll be like, well, no, maybe I'll move this one. Well, we all know that moving this one's the same as moving this one. And then it's seriously, and I don't know, Chris, if we were able to see it, but if you just move this one out, there's a little square created right here in between these. And on TikTok, again, if the goal was to entertain people, which apparently Megan didn't think that's what we were here for, they'll play with them, and it'll take. I think I actually watched somebody try and figure this out for about 5 minutes, and
my brain thinks a little differently.
Apparently, that was impressive. Like I thought I was going to get to have some fun with that. Like I was I've been like stoked all morning for this, and it's over. Okay, so.
I have other information to share, so I had to make it quick. I really have not seen that before, though.
Seriously?
That's going to take me like all through the day.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I could make you feel better for today. So, quick recap, and then we'll add on anything.
Yeah.
So, the walk to end Alzheimer's is this September.
Yep, September 29th.
Yep.
It's a Friday night again.
This month is Alzheimer's and brain
Awareness month.
Oh, yeah. I keep wanting to put brain disease in there, even though I know it's not.
Yeah.
That's why I pause every time. So again, watch us. The Alzheimer's Association will have tons of information out there. You guys are doing a bunch of cool stuff all month.
Yep.
What are some of the other things you're doing?
So, so some of the suggestions we have is to wear purple this month, display purple at your business. Specifically, June 21st is the longest day of the year. It's another pivotal fundraising date for the Alzheimer's Association. So if you're going to pick one day and go get everybody in purple, that's a fantastic day to do it. We're going to have some promotions that week. I know Addington Place is doing events all day to celebrate the longest day. Senior Resources will as well. And then that weekend, we'll share some more information, but the Merrill Hotel will be doing a give back through Maxwell's for that weekend to celebrate. The Merrill Hotel will also have a display in the center of their lobby starting this afternoon, I think, maybe tomorrow morning, with all of the facts and information and all of the resources that we're sharing as well. So that's a spot that you can go and physically look at stuff if you're needing it. But I always wear my shirt. I wear it a couple times a month because you never know who might be starting this journey or just might be at a place where they need support. They've had a rough day caring for someone, or they are not sure what to do. And having that purple is a visual sign that you're a support system and that you're there for them. So displaying that purple all month. The lights on my house will be purple, so if you have lights to change, if you can put up facts and information, this is a great month to really focus that spotlight on this cause. And if any business is looking for education, we can get a volunteer from the Alzheimer's Association to come out to your business and do an education. And then I will also promote that this is a fantastic month to start a team. So either a personal team or a team with your business, start a team for the walk, start fundraising, and let people know that you'll be joining us.
Yep. And if you want to do those educational things for your business, I'm more than happy to come in with my pen trick and see if we can get your staff.
We'll test all the staff first.
The other thing that was actually really pretty crazy, so Count Fast, the cards that
the kids do.
Those actually work really well for brain health and keeping things going. And we actually sent some up to the Alzheimer's Association for them to take a peek at and be able to use. But it's kind of a cool little
puzzles,
all of it. Just keep your brain active, keep your overall body healthy, and life will be good. Sleep a lot. That's another one.
Yep.
Don't shortchange yourself on sleep. So I'm gonna again tag Dr. Saga's stuff.
Yeah.
It's dementia prevention right up at the top. Unity Point has done a tremendous job. Angie has done a great job getting that all organized and getting him there. I think there's been 5 and there's 2 more, I think.
Yep.
Sounds about right.
June, July, yep.
Yeah, June and July, yeah. So definitely check those out as well. So.
Yeah, and Unity Point is coming on as a sponsor.
Yes.
With the walk. They'll have a community resource tent at the walk, so focusing on all of the resources that we have in our community.
That sounds good. Well, thank you for swinging in, even though it wasn't a Monday.
I know.
And we will be right back with Mark Seaman from the Stanley Center for Peace and Security.
It's time for an update from the Not So Late Show with Austin, brought to you by Unity Point Health.
Listen up, everyone. I've got some news. Things are still kind of crazy out there, and the pandemic is still going on. And it's hard to keep people healthy. And right now, things are really tough for healthcare workers. There are a lot of people needing help with their health. They're working very hard. They're tired. And they are working extra shifts. Well, that would be like when you just get right out of school. You have to go back and do it all over again. Ugh. So there's something you need to know. It's time to be kind. Healthcare workers are doing the best they can to help you. They just need your help too. Take care of yourself however you can with your vaccinations and your healthy habits. But if you get sick, go see your doctor. If you have to wait, be patient. Be a patient patient. They're real people just like you. And do you know why they're working so hard? For you. So show them a little love, or at least a little bit of kindness. That's one way we can all feel better. Okay, that's all I've got, everyone. Stay safe out there and remember to be kind to healthcare workers.
This has been a special update from the Not So Late Show with Austin. Good night. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back, everybody. We have with us today Mark Seaman from the Stanley Center for Peace and Security. I keep wanting to call it the Stanley Foundation, but I'm glad you've got it on your shirt.
Hi, Chris.
I love how you guys have like nice little cues for me and everything. It's great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So real quick, if you would, for those that don't know you, if you just introduce yourself and kind of what your role at the Stanley Center is.
Sure. I'm Mark Seaman. I'm the Vice President and Director of Communications at the Stanley Center. Part of my responsibilities are our relationships with the public, especially the community, and also getting into the hands of policymakers and policy shakers the new solutions to global challenges that our policy team, in partnership with others, co-explore to create change in the world.
So let's take a quick aside, because you've got some really cool stuff that's happened recently, is happening literally tomorrow, and then coming up right after that. But to give people some context, could you give us like a quick elevator speech version of what you guys do? Because I think a lot of people in town know you exist.
Yeah.
But have maybe, I don't want to say no idea what you do, but maybe not a really good, grasp of like what a daily task that you guys are trying to do to accomplish a really cool mission.
Sure. So the Stanley Center, we bring people together around the world to explore intersections of policy on 3 global challenges: mitigating climate change, avoiding the use of nuclear weapons, and preventing mass violence and atrocities. And so these are intersections of policy that just haven't been explored, and with a little bit of study, a little bit of discussion and conversation through inclusive dialogue, there's actual solutions that start to emerge. And our job is to help those solutions spark and generate some activity and get implemented in policy around the world. And then we have our local work, global education at Stanley Center, which is led by Krista Regeneter, who so many people know. She's a fantastic colleague, and she leads our local work here in Muscatine. She works closely with the school district and other partners to explore inclusivity and foster dialogue and really help students explore the world, explore diversity, and understand what that means and how it can lead to global progress.
Well, and the thing that always amazes me, so what you guys do, so I've got a good friend who works at the Stanley Center, and when she talks about what you guys do and what you work on, it's so, I like to think that I have a pretty good grasp of things that go on in the world, right? But it's so it's so all-encompassing. These 3 things do affect what happens in the world every day, and you guys are literally tackling world-sized problems every day and make a difference, right? And you're right here in Muscatine.
And we've been in Muscatine for 70 years. This is the first time, or almost 70 years, this is the first time we've sort of had a presence at street level. And so I think it's led to a lot of questions. I'm leaving the office some days and people are asking me, hey, what is that? What is the Stanley Center? And little did they know that we were founded in 1956 by Max and Betty Stanley. Max had a huge hand in starting H&I Corporation and, of course, Stanley Consultants. A lot of people still confuse us with Stanley Consultants. We're two separate organizations that share Max's vision and as our founder. And those two businesses are still alive and well. And the Stanley Center is very committed to Muscatine. And so a few years ago, we asked the question, we're leasing space. We've been here for 65 years. Isn't it time we had a home of our own?
Right.
And so we said yes, absolutely. And our board doubled down on the decision to remain committed to Muscatine. And so that's what led to the process to build our living building right at 3rd and Iowa.
Yeah, this is the thing that I kind of alluded to that's been going on for a while. And it's been a long, I'm going to say arduous process, because what you guys did is you created a living building that is one of the most, I'm probably not going to use the right terminology here, but functionally, it's one of the most sustainable buildings in the world.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, again, talking with Jen, like all the little things you guys paid attention to, but like as a big picture for those that it creates more energy than it uses.
That's right.
You get all the water the building needs from basically like catchment and things
From
like
rain,
that.
yep.
It's extremely open. And I would have never thought you could do that in the old Musser Public Library.
Yeah.
So let's tie this all in. All that stuff that you've been seeing, the new like black building, the old Musser Public Library, that is the Stanley Center. All the stuff that we're talking about is that craziness that's been going on there.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about this whole thing. Tell us about the vision of the building.
Sure.
Because the vision, and when I first heard this, I'll be honest, I was like, that's a big reach.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm the guy that goes for big reaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you get me going, it's big. And so it's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so when we started the process to build a permanent home, we looked at our core values and we had a big discussion with staff, what is it in a new home that's going to be important to us? And we considered those values, we really doubled down on them, and we thought, how can we build a physical manifestation of those values? We interviewed a few architecture firms, and Newman Monson came to us with a very values-based proposal. They wanted to understand what we wanted from the building. They didn't just show up with a plan, they showed up with the will to listen. And as we explained to them, what our values were and how we hope to manifest that in a physical space, they introduced us to what's called the Living Building Challenge. And the Living Building Challenge, none of us had ever heard of before.
Okay, I feel better.
Yeah.
If you guys didn't know about it,
yeah.
because when I first heard it, I'm like, what is that? And okay, I feel better if you guys hadn't heard of it.
Yep, absolutely. So they shared it with us, and it's the most rigorous proven performance standard for buildings today. Buildings contribute 40% of carbon emissions in the world. And as an organization that works to tackle climate change, it's important to live our values through keeping to our word. And so the Living Building Challenge, as I said, it's a proven performance standard. So we have to demonstrate a year's worth of data to show that we've generated our own electricity, we've captured our own rainwater, we have been equitable with our neighbors and for our staff that use the building. And there's several other what they call petals that have to be met in order to meet that certification. So this is the grand opening of the building. And we hope that a year from now we'll come back to celebrate the fact that we are a certified living building. It would be one of just 34 in the world and only the 3rd or 4th renovated building to achieve that status. And so we, in conversation with our architects, we realized that with a little bit of effort and thought and determination, we could achieve this right here in Muscatine. Graham Construction has been a fantastic partner as well, and everybody's just been really committed to meeting those rigorous standards. So for example, none of the building material can be on what's called the industry red list. So these are materials in products that are harmful for the environment, are harmful to living creatures to either create or in their daily use. So things as simple as PVC pipe, for example. The construction industry had to go back and think, okay, if we can't use PVC, what can we use? So all of the buildings pipes are copper. And so it's those kinds of thoughts, those kinds of challenges for more products than you can imagine in a construction project that had to be vetted and certified. And then on top of that, they had to come from within so many miles of Muscatine. So we're not going to the ends of the earth to bring in materials, because as you ship from further and further away, that also contributes to climate change and carbon emissions.
And what I've loved, so we got to go through the building. I'm going to call it halfway through the process, right?
Yep.
And I walked in, and everybody remembers the library, right? You walk in this big open thing, and it looked, on one hand, 100% the same and 100% different all at once. And as we're walking through, like out through the back, you see natural light, right? And at the point we were there, you guys were digging what became the, what do you call it?
The courtyard.
The courtyard,
Outdoor
okay.
courtyard.
I was thinking, sure. But there's a creek that runs down through there under the ground, right?
Yeah.
And like they were like figuring out where the water's coming from and how to manage it and how to keep everything intact. And just watching them do that, just so that you could have the courtyard with living plants and everything in it, was amazing. Because we all remember the old library. It was, I don't want to say cold. It was very concrete. Like, I mean, it was very just solid and heavy feeling and
Functional.
it was fun. Yeah, absolutely.
But a 70s building.
But
right?
so yes, and I think you all know what I'm talking about, because I don't have the words. But now when you look at it, it just is completely different. Same skeleton, right? So what are some of the cool things? I can think of one cool thing that kind of led into some of these.
Yeah.
That you saw happen as the building project went on, that
Sure.
led to some of those.
So one of the requirements is that the building's occupants have access to natural daylight. So we put in skylights, and then we took out almost a third of the building, which is kind of where those classrooms were on the second and first floors, way in the back, and we cut a big hole in courtyard that's open to the sky, and punched in a lot more windows, and just really brought in that daylight. And so one of the greatest functions is we have over 300 plants in the building. We have 4 Benjamin ficus or weeping fig trees in the atrium, and we have that outdoor courtyard where we're growing fresh herbs and vegetables to donate to our friends at the MCSA right across the alley. So the solar panels on the roof, the rainwater catchment systems, all of the greenery. All these things looked interesting on paper when we sent out to take the Living Building Challenge, but we've been in the building a few months, and I can tell you, Chris, it just feels good being inside of that building.
And that's, the one thing that always sticks out to me, and you almost touched on it, I thought you were going to go there, was on the solar side at MCSA, and like helping, like coordinating everything with your neighbors and being a good neighbor. And I'm probably going to, again, mess this up a little bit, but you guys had to have so many solar panels and all this stuff to be able to get to the numbers you need.
Yep.
And I think it was kind of like you need more roof space almost to make it work. So what functionally happened is you guys made like a little shelf almost off the top of the roof that goes over towards MCSA. And there's solar panels on the top, but it also functions as an awning for the access to the food pantry.
Yeah.
So now as people are like loading and unloading and going in and out of the food pantry, they're protected from rain, and it also helps you guys get to the solar need.
It's one of those cool things that serve kind of more than one purpose. And so we had talked with MCSA about it, and they were kind of excited about the awning. We worked with the city to make sure that the alley could be kept open to traffic, and traffic will soon resume through that alley. MCSA has just been a great neighbor. The other cool thing that we did in partnership with MCSA, so part of meeting the water requirement for the Living Building Challenge is that we had to reduce our water consumption And part of doing that is that we can help our neighbors reduce their water consumption as well. So we talked with MCSA and found out what their needs were. And we replaced all the washing machines and dryers to be a lot more water efficient, toilet sinks, showers, those kinds of things. And so they all have new fixtures that greatly reduce their water consumption and help lower their water bill in perpetuity.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I knew you guys had done a bunch with them, but I didn't know that was actually part of it. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So as you guys look forward, you've been in there a couple months, you're getting there. So I would assume you can kind of start focusing back on the mission again a little more, right?
Yeah,
and not
for
that
sure.
you didn't, but you know, what are some of the things that have got you excited for the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah, so tomorrow is our sustainability fair. Is that where you're going with
That's
that?
exactly where I was going.
Tomorrow's our sustainability fair. We're having a giant open house, open to the public, free. We're closing off Iowa Avenue between 3rd and 4th Streets from 3 to 7 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, June 2nd. And we're going to have tablers from organizations, businesses all throughout the county. We've got food trucks, we've got tours of the building, and live musical performances from a wide array of backgrounds. And yeah, it's just going to be a great family-friendly time. The Art Center is going to be there with some kids' activities. The Musser Library is going to be there, back there, to help us celebrate as well. And MPW, lots of cool local partners are going to help us celebrate. And I hope everybody comes out for it.
Yeah, and I think something you touched on there, folks, if you've been here in Muscatine for a long time, make sure you come down, because the whole Musser Library move, you know, to the building with HNI's help, it all showed that Muscatine can solve real problems effectively, right?
Absolutely.
HNI needed a new headquarters. The library needed a new building. Then it left it for you guys, and, you know, I remember like talking through some of your process, like, do you go down by the library, the new library?
Yep.
And all of a sudden it just sort of like landed, there's this building and you can make it work.
Yeah.
And it saved it.
We looked at something like 60 locations around in and just outside of Muscatine when we were deciding where to build or renovate. And the answer was sort of right in front of our face all the time. So we had been occupying the top 2 floors of the Laurel building since the late 90s. And so we're just moving a block away, but the building was right there. It's a great downtown location. We can preserve that history and heritage of it as a learning center. It's just had all of the bones and great potential to be developed into our new home. So we're really happy to be there.
Yeah. So from here, the building's ready. What are some of the next big things that you guys are going to work on tackling?
Yeah, so in terms of our work, in our nuclear weapons area, we're exploring intergenerational knowledge transfer. So we've got a retiring generation of nuclear policy experts. How can we capture what they know through stories and hand that off to younger generations who are just emerging into the field so that they can benefit from some of those lessons learned over the decades?
Creating institutional memory.
Exactly.
Exactly. That will be huge.
Yeah, it's really exciting. In our climate change space, we're always looking forward to the next international moments that the international policy community comes together, and that will be in Dubai later this year. People have become increasingly familiar with the United Nations Conference of the Parties, or COP. That's the activity every year where the world comes together to really focus on climate change in that specific moment. And so we'll certainly be there, and we've got a lot of work leading up to that between now and then. How can we phase out coal around the world? Coal is absolutely terrible for carbon emissions and the environment, and not just here in the US, but around the world, Southeast Asia and other places. And how can we promote renewables? And how can we bridge that connection to a sustainable future where the world is a safer place because we've put some intention in climate change policy? And then in our mass violence and atrocities work, we're bringing together mayors from around the world in South America next month, or a little later this month, to talk about reducing violence in urban centers. So there's some excellent policies that have been implemented in cities in Africa and South America and other places that could be replicated in others. And so with just a little bit of dialogue, with a little bit of cross-cultural communication and exploration, they could be implemented in other cities as well. So that's some of our policy work that's going on right now.
And the other thing, I'm going to sound like a fanboy here, but the other thing that I love about what you guys do, there's a whole journalism aspect.
Yeah.
That, I mean, obviously it catches my attention, right?
Yeah.
And how the role that journalism can play in all three of these major pillars, but, you know, having that accountability, having the ability to be independent,
Yeah.
right? Like, you had a whole bunch of journalists from around the world here last month, 8 weeks ago, somewhere.
A few months ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, you know, they're all talking about something that we take for granted in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't ever have to worry, as a publisher of a newspaper and TV, whatever, I don't ever have to worry that, you know, the government's going to come down on me for what I say. I mean, obviously, FCC might if I started dropping bombs everywhere, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to worry about that stuff. And I can be independent. I can ask questions of anybody in town freely and not worry about it, right?
Yeah.
That's not the case everywhere.
Absolutely.
And, you know, seeing how you guys support that and support the ability for them to be independent, because just writing stories doesn't matter, right? Because you never know where they come from, you never know who's backing them, you never know that. And to see you guys recognize the role that journalism can play in shaping the future is amazing. So
yeah, and that started, our journalism and media program has been around a little while, but even going back as far as the 70s, Max Stanley wanted to expand the media's access to the United Nations. They wanted them in the room and reporting on these kinds of things to tell their stories. And so today, that work has evolved a little bit. We work with journalists around the world to help them get access and develop more and better reporting on 3 global challenges we work on. These are reporters who are, you know, in countries where a free and independent press is not something that's valued or prized. It hardly exists in some places that we're working. And on the opposite side, reporters have a lot they can tell the policy community too about the things they've seen, about the human interactions that they've had, the violence that they've witnessed in various places, the climate change manifestations that are happening in places. And so it's a two-way street.
It is, and the one thing, you know, when we started this that I would have never anticipated was the number of times that something will land on my desk that's a citizen asking a question or something like that. And, you know, I'll be like, you know what, I don't know. I'll make a phone call and find out. And it's not always a story, but it also creates a relationship where I can ask those questions and they know where, you know, people are comfortable talking with us about it because they know we're not trying to attack and we're just trying to bring out the truth and whatever.
Yep.
And, you know, the number of times that positive things happen out of a little misunderstanding just because we can have those conversations because they know where we're coming from with it, right? Or I can say, hey, here's something you might not have noticed. Before your next meeting, you may want to look at something like this so that you're ready, right? So that you know what people's concerns are.
Right.
And here's what they are. Like, I've got a list of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, it helps everybody be prepared, and it helps relationship, and it also starts helping those two parties start building trust, even if they didn't necessarily trust each other to begin with. You know, you can play kind of this intermediary and help, right?
Yeah.
So I absolutely love it, and I love that you guys support that and are increasing people's ability to play that role in communities.
Absolutely. It's really amazing to see some of the stories that come from international journalists back in their home countries as a result of our work, particularly around climate change, helping them get access to sources, helping them get access to facts, never influencing their story. That's not what we're about in our journalism and media program. We're about just helping them do a better job at what they're doing already.
Well, and I think the one thing that goes to that, and people, I'm gonna get on a little bit of a soapbox here for a second. I think sometimes people think that mainstream journalists, so I'm not talking like columnists, and I'm not talking, talk show hosts, just very few of them have agendas other than to find the truth. That's all they want, is at the core. And to be able to have access to that and be able to tell those stories and let people decide, like most journalists like me, I don't necessarily want anyone to take my opinion on something. Like, I want them to see what it is and form their own opinion, because that's what leads to good community conversation, is having access to the information, letting as many people as possible disseminate it, understand it, and then contribute to the conversation. That's what journalists want to do.
Yeah.
They don't want to get anybody on the left, the right. It's not that. And that's listening to, I got some bits and pieces out of the event. Okay. That's what they all want to do. They just want to get to the truth so everybody can see what it is and everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that's my soapbox. I'm sorry. That's one that, obviously it hits a little close to home.
Yeah.
So, holy cow. Quick recap. We have tomorrow, and honestly, that's the big thing. That is the big thing today. Stop by the Sustainability Fair, the old library, corner of Iowa and 3rd, right by CBI and across from Stanley Consultants.
Yep.
3 to 7. Tons of stuff going on. We're not going to try and go down that list again, but they've got a great event coming. And go through the building.
Absolutely.
It'll be open, and I would also guarantee you may not realize it, but you'll know somebody that works there.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. And we partnered with our architects, so if you come inside the building, you'll get a little passport, and you have to visit our architects who are stationed around the building and find out a little bit more about it. And if you complete your passport book, you get a prize. So
nice.
I won't tell you what that is, but
I might have to get a fake
cool.
stamp.
No, come and explore the building.
No, I
We've
will.
always envisioned it doubling as a teaching tool for what's possible in terms of green technology and sustainability. And this is our big open house. We hope people will turn out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Mark, thanks for stopping in.
Thanks, Chris.
It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Again, tomorrow afternoon, 3 to 7, stop by and watch the girls tonight, girls softball tonight at 5, doubleheader. And we will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, Muscatine.